What's up, YouTube? This is 82 and 0. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Tommy Heinsohn. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tom Heinsohn was the power forward for the Celtics through the 50s to the 60s. He was born August 26, 1934. And he was born in Jersey City, New Jersey. Heinsohn was a standout at St. Mitchell's High School in nearby Union City. He accepted a scholarship at Holy Cross in Massachusetts and became the school's all-time leading scorer with 1,789 points and an average of 22.1 points per game. During his senior year, Heinsohn scored a school record 51 points in a game against Boston College and averaged 27.4 per game and 21.1 rebounds per game for the season. Now, in 1956, he was chosen as the territorial pick for the Boston Celtics. And for those of you who don't know, during the early days of the NBA had what were called territorial picks to kind of draw fans in. They thought that if players or fans were familiar with a player who maybe played high school or college ball there or whatever, then they would probably go see him play professionally. And in his very first season, he was drafted with Bill Russell. So he would actually win Rookie of the Year over Russell. And this kind of caused a friction between Russell and Heinsohn. Russell felt he deserved it more than Heinsohn. But it's all personal preference. They were both amazing players. But he was named to the All-Star team in his rookie season. He put up 16.2 points per game and 9.8 rebounds. And the Celtics would win the title that year. Heinsohn and Russell. Now, after that, he wouldn't make an All-Star appearance again into the 60-61 season. But that didn't mean his numbers were bad. Like in 59-60, he averaged 21.7 points per game, 10.6 rebounds per game. And he would go on and play up into the 64-65 season. So he only played 8 seasons in the NBA. And he retired at the age of 30. And the reason why is he was having foot injury. He had a foot injury, which cut his career short. But just in the 9 years that he played, he was a 6-time All-Star, 8-time NBA champion, 4-time All-NBA, 1957 Rookie of the Year, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as a player in 1986. He was a very good outside shot. That's what I think a lot of people probably don't know today, especially because in that era, you don't really think of outside shot. There was no real benefit to taking outside shots just because, there's no three-point line. He was a great defender, great rebounder, and his highest scoring average was 22.1 points per game in the 61-62 season. His highest rebound total was 10.6 in the 59-60 season. And he was crucial to some of those Boston Celtics titles. And a lot of people thought when he retired that the Celtics were going to be in trouble. Like, how are they going to rebuild this team without Tom Heinsohn there? And Tom Heinsohn, after the NBA, he would go on and become a coach. Now, initially, they wanted, when Red Auerbach retired as coach of the Celtics, his first pick was Tom Heinsohn. But during this time, he wasn't really interested in coaching. It wasn't until later. He became the Celtics head coach in the 69-70 season. He led the team to a 68-14 record during the 72-73 season and was named Coach of the Year, although Boston was upset in the playoffs. The next season, Heinsohn and the Celtics won the championship, and they claimed another title in 1976. As a coach, his record is 427 wins and 263 losses, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as a coach in 2015. But what I think a lot of people probably know him for was his broadcasting career. And his broadcasting career started in 1966, where he was a play-by-play commentator for WKBG's Celtics broadcast. He spent 3 seasons in his role before becoming coach in 69 to 90. Now, Heinsohn was the Celtics road play-by-play man on WFXT, WSBAK, and WABU. In 1981, Heinsohn joined Mike Gorman as a color commentator in the Celtics television broadcast. They became one of the longest tenured tandems in sports broadcasting history. Occasionally, Bob Cousy made appearances with the tandem of Heinsohn and Gorman. On Celtics broadcasts, Heinsohn liked to point out players who he displayed extra hustle to help the team by giving them Tommy points. One player in each game he had exceptional play and hustle highlighted for the Tommy Award. During broadcasts, he was known for his sense of humor and his questioning game official calls. And that's one thing I liked about him. If you go on YouTube and you type in Tom Heinsohn freaks out over calls or whatever, you can see him get mad over calls that didn't go his way. I like how he was unhinged. A lot of times people, they just do whatever to make others happy and let them roll over them. Heinsohn didn't let anyone roll over him. He called the bullshit as he saw it. For a time in the 1980s, Heinsohn was in the same capacity during this CBS playoff coverage of the NBA with Dick Stockton, calling 4 finals from 1984 to 1987, 3 of which involved the Boston Celtics against the Los Angeles Lakers. Heinsohn also teamed up with Brent Masburger, Vern Lundquist, and James Brown during his time with CBS. Heinsohn also called NCAA college games during the men's tournaments, starting with the 86-87 season, later devoting more time to be called college games for CBS than the pros, being used for regular season as well as tournament games until the 1990 NCAA's men's basketball tournament. For NCAA games, Heinsohn was typically paired with Vern Lundquist. After the 1987 season, Heinsohn moved from the primary color analyst role to the second network's depth chart, being paired with Brent Musburger for the 87-88 season, calling solely playoff games. Heinsohn in the 88-89 season again only called playoff games, paired with Vern Lundquist. In his final season, Heinsohn called a regular season game for CBS as well as early round 1990 playoff games with James Brown. And let's talk about his other interests. He was an avid golfer. He once actually owned a life insurance company. And in 1988, he wrote a memoir titled Give 'Em the Hook, which I'd encourage everybody to go check that book out. Great book. And unfortunately, in 2020, he died of kidney failure. November 9th, 2020. He was 86 years old. So rest in peace, Tom Heinsohn. One of the greatest Celtics legends of all time. Hall of Fame coach. Hall of Fame player. And that's Tom Heinsohn's story. Definitely one of my favorite commentators. And I wish we still had commentators like this. I should say there still are some that say what's on their mind. Charles Barkley comes to mind. But for the most part, a lot of commentators or analysts, journalists, whatever, they just try to push whatever narrative is popular at the time. They don't just say what's on their mind. And that's what made Tom Heinsohn so great to me, was he called it like it was. And his nickname was Mr. Celtic because of his loyalty to the Celtics. So rest in peace. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching.